Sunny Hostin, a host on The View, just set off an explosion that's rocked the world of sports, specifically women's basketball. It all started when she casually dropped a bombshell during a segment. CaitlinClark's incredible rise wasn't just about her record-breaking talent or her unmatched skills. No, according to Sunny, CaitlinClark's success could be attributed to something much more controversial: white privilege. And just like that, a conversation about a rising star in basketball became a conversation about race, identity, and privilege. What was even more jarring was that Sunny didn't stop there. She then linked this success to pretty privilege and even height privilege, as if Clark's physical appearance and race were the sole reasons behind her meteoric rise in women's basketball. The very notion that CaitlinClark's hard work and undeniable talent were being reduced to these labels was enough to send shockwaves through the sports world and beyond. Now, let's take a moment to really digest this. In the span of a few sentences, Sunny Hostin had managed to dismiss the sheer amount of dedication it took for CaitlinClark to achieve what she has. She dismissed the years of training, the countless hours spent refining her game, the challenges of being in the public eye. None of that seemed to matter when you could simply pull out white privilege as the card that explained it all. It's a take that's not only problematic, but also dangerous. What message does it send to the next generation of athletes? That no matter how hard you work, people will reduce your achievements to your race or appearance. And here's the kicker: Sunny Hostin, who claims to have been a basketball fan for decades, should know better. The conversation about race in sports is complex, but to take one of the most talented players in the world and boil it down to her appearance is as lazy as it gets. But before we go down that road too far, let's ask ourselves, is this the kind of narrative we want to create around athletes? Do we want to dismiss their success because of their identity, rather than celebrating their hard work and impact? For Sunny Hostin, a woman who's built her career on discussing issues of justice, equality, and race, this wasn't just a casual comment. It was a message that CaitlinClark's success should be viewed through the lens of privilege. According to Sunny, Caitlin's rise wasn't about how good she was at basketball. It was about how the world views her race, her looks, even her height. Privilege, Sunny argued, was the reason why Clark could succeed. Let's break this down. Sunny mentioned white privilege, a term that's often used to describe the systemic advantages that white people have in various societal contexts. However, by applying this term to CaitlinClark's success in basketball, it completely dismisses the fact that Clark's achievements have nothing to do with her race. It's about her talent, dedication, and work ethic. The idea that she could somehow be more successful just because she is white is not only an oversimplification of the issue, but also an unfair characterization of her accomplishments. Then there's pretty privilege. Now, this is a term that's typically used in the context of people being treated better because they meet certain societal standards of beauty. Sunny claimed that CaitlinClark's success was, in part, due to this pretty privilege, insinuating that people were more inclined to support her because of how she looks. But what does this really say about the true value of athletic achievement? If we reduce Clark's success to her looks, we completely ignore her years of effort, her commitment to the game, and the undeniable skill she brings to the court. As if that wasn't enough, Sunny even pulled in height privilege as another factor. Yes, apparently, CaitlinClark's height, something that could arguably be considered an advantage in basketball, was also part of the reason why people gravitated toward her. But here's the thing. Great athletes come in all shapes and sizes. Michael Jordan wasn't the tallest player on the court, but he's still considered the greatest to ever play. This idea that privilege, in all its forms, is the sole driver of CaitlinClark's rise is an insult not only to her, but to every athlete who's worked tirelessly to reach the top. To make matters worse, Sunny went as far as to suggest that Caitlin's success was more relatable because of her race and appearance, implying that the general public couldn't connect with athletes who might not share the same characteristics. This was perhaps one of the most infuriating parts of her argument. To reduce an athlete's success to these categories especially when there's so much talent involved, completely undermines the very thing that makes sports great: hard work, determination, and the ability to rise above obstacles. CaitlinClark isn't a symbol of privilege. She's a symbol of success against all odds, of breaking barriers, and of paving the way for others to follow. What happens when an athlete as influential as LeBron James steps into the conversation? You get an immediate shift in the narrative. LeBron, who's faced his own share of criticism and controversy throughout his career, didn't just sit back and let Sonny Hostin's comments slide. He took to the media to defend CaitlinClark, and in doing so, he not only stood up for her, but he also called out the oversimplified way that her success was being viewed. LeBron's response was powerful. He didn't just speak about Clark's talent, he spoke from personal experience. LeBron has lived through the kind of scrutiny that CaitlinClark is facing. He's seen what it's like to be a target of animosity and criticism for no other reason than being successful. But despite all the hate, LeBron remained focused. He's built a career that has firmly placed him in the greatest of all time conversation, and he did it by focusing on what matters: his game, his team, and his legacy. So why did LeBron feel the need to speak up for Caitlin? It's simple. He saw something of himself in her. He saw a young athlete who was being torn down for no reason other than her success. A person who's been working tirelessly to build a career, and yet, instead of being celebrated for her accomplishments, she's being criticized for her race, her looks, and even her popularity. In his defense of Caitlin, LeBron took a step further. He compared Caitlin's situation to his son's, who, like many young athletes, faces intense scrutiny. LeBron was quick to point out that there are only a select few who ever make it to the level of success that CaitlinClark has achieved, and those people deserve to be celebrated, not torn apart by baseless hate. But it wasn't just about defending her from criticism. It was about calling out the unfair treatment of athletes who are simply living out their dreams. LeBron's point was clear. CaitlinClark deserves to be recognized for her skill, her performance, and her game-changing influence in basketball. Her race, her appearance, her gender, none of that should overshadow the fact that she's a generational talent who's reshaping women's basketball. Sonny's comments, however, weren't just about CaitlinClark. They were about a bigger problem in sports and culture: the idea that success can only be explained by identity politics. The assumption that someone's success can be attributed to their race or looks, rather than their talent or dedication, diminishes the value of hard work. It's like saying a coach who spends decades perfecting their craft didn't earn their spot because of their strategy, but because of something like their gender or background. In sports, it's not about who you are or how you look. It's about what you can do when the spotlight is on you. CaitlinClark's incredible journey, setting NCAA records, breaking barriers for women in basketball, and consistently outplaying her competition, should stand as the testament to her hard work, not an analysis of her race or privilege. If we start breaking down every success by those lenses, we lose sight of the very thing that makes sports beautiful: the pure, undiluted talent. And if this narrative is true, then how can we explain the rise of someone like LeBron James, whose career has been under constant scrutiny? If LeBron's success was only due to his race, would he have faced such backlash for every little thing? Would he have had to face as much hatred for simply being good at his craft? Absolutely not. LeBron James didn't just defend CaitlinClark. He spoke from personal experience, sharing how he understood exactly what she was going through. As someone who's been in the public eye for decades, LeBron has faced all kinds of criticism, from decisions on the court to his off-court political stances. Yet, despite the noise, he managed to stay focused, building a career that solidified his place in the GOAT conversation. And CaitlinClark? She's on the same path, navigating a world where every little detail is dissected. LeBron doesn't just talk about the talent that Clark possesses. He connects on a deeper level. He compares it to the struggles his son is facing, someone who's trying to make his way in a world that sometimes seems to have a set agenda about who gets to succeed. LeBron emphasized a crucial point. Despite all the negativity, CaitlinClark is focused. She's got a great head on her shoulders, and that's what makes her stand out. While the world criticizes, CaitlinClark continues to prove herself on the court, setting records and changing the game for women's basketball. She's elevating the sport, bringing in new fans, and changing the way we look at women's athletics. Let's talk about the numbers, because numbers don't lie. CaitlinClark is rewriting history. She is the all-time leading scorer in NCAA history, surpassing legends like Pete Maravich. She has more 30-point games than anyone in the past 25 years. She's breaking records in the WNBA too, setting franchise records and making history with every single game. But it's not just about the stats. It's about how Clark is changing the culture of women's sports. Her games are drawing millions of viewers, and her presence is bringing in fans like never before. For the first time in WNBA history, the league had a chartered plane for travel. And you know who made that possible? CaitlinClark. With every game, she's breaking barriers not just for herself, but for the entire WNBA. The numbers are extraordinary. She's attracting 3 times the viewership of the average WNBA game. Her games are pulling in crowds like never before, and that's just the start. The WNBA's entire operation is changing, all because of CaitlinClark. CaitlinClark's impact goes beyond just her performance on the court. It's about what she's doing for women's sports, for young girls who are now seeing a future in athletics. Just like Serena Williams and Michael Jordan, CaitlinClark is becoming a symbol of greatness, showing the world that women's sports can be just as captivating, just as exciting, and just as impactful as any other sport. Now, but her success will change the business side of things too. With her star power, the WNBA will likely see better sponsorships, more media coverage, and possibly higher salaries for players. The transformation is happening right now, and it's all thanks to athletes like CaitlinClark. So, what's next for CaitlinClark? It's clear, she's just getting started. Her impact is undeniable, and her legacy is already in the making. CaitlinClark is transforming women's sports, and we're witnessing something historic. Let's talk about the future. Are we on the brink of a golden era in women's sports? Or is the journey just beginning? One thing's for sure. CaitlinClark is at the forefront, and we're all lucky enough to be along for the ride. If you believe in CaitlinClark's impact and the future of women's sports, share this video with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going. Like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated on everything happening in the world of sports. The future is bright, and we're just getting started.